Hi everyone, welcome back to Web3. My name is Zach. In this video, Binance has been reportedly helping Russia amid, of course, the Russian invasion on Ukraine. Let's have a look at what's happening here. Binance pushing back against the report exchange supplied customer data to Russian government. The exchange said it was categorically false, that it shared user data with Russian regulators and it had stopped working in the country following the invasion of Ukraine. So, let's have a look at what's happening here. So, the report stated one of its regional heads agreed to supply Russia's financial intelligence unit with customer data potentially related to donations for anti-corruption and anti-Putin activist Alexei Navalny. The royalties report on Friday that Binance head of Eastern Europe and Russia, Gleb Kostarev, met with officials from Russia's Rosfin Monitoring, a financial monitoring service linked to the country's FSB, in April 2021. Kostarev reportedly agreed to a request from the government body to turn over certain user data, including names and addresses, later telling an associate he didn't have much of a choice in the matter. However, another unnamed crypto exchange reportedly did not agree to provide client data to RS Monitoring due to concerns about how the information would be used, as well as the unit's ties to the FSB. Now, may have been attempting to obtain information from users donating Bitcoin to Navalny, who is currently imprisoned in Russia after having been found guilty of contempt of court and embezzlement in March. Many human rights groups, including Amnesty International, have alleged the charges were politically motivated, as Navalny has directly criticized Putin for corruption and accused head of state of being responsible for his poisoning in August of 2020. However, in a blog post, Binance hinted that the report gave a false narrative. We'll have a look at the full report after this article. Binance published the email exchanges between Reuters and its spokespersons, which were part of the research for the report. The firm also said it would write a formal complaint alleged hype or sensationalist journalism. Prior to that statement, many Twitter users seemed to be critical of Binance's response to the report, one person alleging that Russia's moves towards adopting pro-crypto regulations could be related to its reported attempt to gain access to user data, allowing citizens to use crypto in order to track transactions. Let's have a look at what's happening here. Max said in writing out, idea cryptocurrency creates a decentralized financial system, independent of banks and regulators, protecting privacy and the funding of political speech. And you're looking at the reality, cryptocurrency broker leaking Navalny supporters' data to the FSB without their knowledge. The report followed Binance's announcement of limitations for Russian nationals and residents in accordance with sanctions imposed by the EU. The affected accounts will not be able to deposit or trade using Binance spot, futures and custody wallets, as well as staked and earned deposits. And they have said the crypto exchange would comply with sanctions imposed by the US and EU on Russian-based entities. Let's have a look at what's going on here with Binance's blog post. Binance and Russia, openness, transparency and honesty. In business media, crypto content performs extremely well. As the market leader, Binance is used to being headline news. Sometimes we may disagree with how we or crypto is portrayed, but more often than not, journalists work with us to educate readers. Like any company, we make mistakes and it's the media's job to hold us accountable. However, there are times when media seek to provide a false narrative, and a recent article by Reuters has sought to portray that Binance has close ties with FSB-controlled agencies and Russian regulators. We don't expect news coverage to always be positive or even be balanced, but we expect it to be fair and accurate. In this case, the article has been carefully written with a narrative in mind that provides not just enough balance possible to try to avoid a legal complaint. So let's set the record straight. Suggestions that Binance shared any user data, including Alexei Navalny, with Russian FSB-controlled agencies and Russian regulators are categorically false. Prior to the war, Binance's engagement in Russia was no different from that of any other international organizations, from banks to burger restaurants. Like every other blockchain company with users in Russia, prior to the war with Ukraine, let's say invasion of Ukraine to be clear, Binance was advocating for Russia to develop an effective crypto regulatory framework, an effort we are undertaking in every market we operate in. As soon as the war started, we stopped working with Russia. Instead, we implemented sanction requirements. Today, as far as we know, Binance is the only crypto exchange in the world to implement the latest packages of sanctions by the EU aimed at Russian account holders. We also donated time and $10 million to the humanitarian effort to help Ukrainians in desperate need, a move recognized and appreciated in person over Zoom with CZ by Mikhailo Fedorov, Minister of Digital Transformation in Ukraine. On the specific matter of not sharing data, today any government or law enforcement agency in the world can request the data from Binance as long as it's accompanied by the proper legal authority. In fact, we have developed a landing page specifically for this purpose, which has been in place for over 1 year, which is used by leading law enforcement agencies from around the world. Russia is no different. Fulfilling disclosure obligations to the authorities in each jurisdiction is a large part of becoming a regulated business, and Binance fulfills its legal obligations. They reserve the right to reject law enforcement requests should they not stand up to legal scrutiny. This applies to all jurisdictions, including Russia. This is the same as any leading bank, financial institution, or multinational company. Binance has engaged with Russian government in the very same way that it engages with other jurisdictions, such as in Europe, Middle East, Latin America, and APAC. These are legal engagements for the purpose of advocating for appropriate digital assets regulations. And to be clear, Binance has not sought to actively assist the Russian state in its attempts to investigate Alexei Navalny. I think that's spelt wrong there. Indeed, the prosecution case concerning Navalny noted that no donations that were subject of an investigation related to digital currencies. To say so is materially inaccurate. Unfortunately, Reuters, one of the most esteemed and trusted news agencies, have published this article that completely contradicts the reputation this outlet has built over the years and is not representative of our experience working with countless other journalists in their organization. To this end, we'll be writing a formal complaint under their own editorial code as stated, reflecting the reality in that it can be tempting for journalists to hype or sensationalized material, skewing the reality of the situation or misleading the reader or viewer into assumptions and impressions that are wrong and potentially harmful, and freedom of bias in that Reuters must always strive to be scrupulously fair and balanced. Allegations should not be portrayed as fact. Charges could not be or should not be conveyed as a sign of guilt. We have a duty of fairness to give the subjects of such stories the opportunity to put their side. Therefore, we have published our email exchange with the authors of that article below to let the community decide. What you will find is that we spent weeks tracking down answers to every one of their 29 questions, only to have the parts of those answers that contradicted the narrative ignored. To this end, here is a full exchange with Reuters that we're publishing in the full spirit of disclosure. And then here we have the emails that are being sent out. There's a lot going on here. So let's go through some of it, shall we? So, from Patrick Hillman, sent Tuesday, April 12 to Berwick Angus. I think that it will be lost on people watching this video to read all of this. I'll be putting a link in the description to this blog post. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take, and we'll see what happens.